There we go. So Marion will monitor chat. So if you want to post anything, announcements of things happening in your park or trash pickup or anything else, volunteer opportunities, you post them in chat and people can see them there. Also, we'd like you to post in chat what ACC did in 2024 that you liked, and then what you would like us to do in 2025. We'll have a discussion, open discussion on those two topics later on in the presentation. And also we're going to look for what you're willing to help out with in 2025. So we'll start off with, let's see, I see this meeting is being recorded. Does everybody's, I need to click on OK. Okay, that does it. Start off with our mission statement, that should drive whatever we do. We'll have a treasurer's report. Marion will do the financial and membership, and I'll talk about the endowment. We'll then review 2024 education, service, and advocacy activities. Then we'll have reports from 5 of the Friends of the Parks with Natural Areas. This is the FAUNA group. Then we'll have the discussion after that in terms of what you all want us to be doing in 2025. Then we'll have board elections and then the final discussion, and then we'll all go eat. So our mission is fairly simple. John Darling was very helpful with this mission, getting it in the final form. But ACC works to protect Arlington's natural areas, natural environment through education, community service, and advocacy for a sustainable future. And we're a 501c3, which makes us tax deductible for deductions on gifts that you give us and your dues, and then limits us from being lobbying on political candidates. Mary, I'll stop sharing. You want to share your screen and give the membership and the financial report?
Sure thing. The projected budget for this year is basically our income is for membership dues, and the $13.50 comes from what we got last year for membership dues. And like they say about stocks, past performance does not indicate future results, but we'll see. Hopefully people will renew their memberships. In the next slide, I'll show you where we stand right now. And our annual expenses are our PO box. Last year is $256, but it keeps creeping up, but that's what it is. And our Zoom account, what we paid last year was $160. I think, Frank, that's like we pay half of, somebody else covers the other half, right? And then we make the following 3 donations in support of these environmental groups. Environment Texas, who does lobbying for environmental issues at the state level. Livable Arlington, who keeps fighting fracking. Our Don Quixote, local Don Quixote, and we also donate to Texas Conservation Alliance. And for a total of projected expenses for this year is not quite $1,100. And we currently have not quite $14,000 in our account. Okay. And I'm showing on this slide what our membership totals have been for the last 4 years, including this year. And it's staying, give or take 50 each year. And since this is just still January, I hope to get more. They kind of start trickling in still for the next couple of months. So if you haven't paid your dues, please do. And if you need information about it, you know, consult the newsletter or just send me a message in the chat. You can send it just to me. So that's it. Any questions? There it is.
Okay. So the total, the endowment was started in December the 7th, 2021. Total donated up to now is $102,062.83. So UTA has made awards in 2022 and 23 to a student who's a Mansfield Summit graduate, Alexander Androvov, and he's now a junior at UTA, and he studied the sort of microgrid energy technology, and he was trying to work on the link between electric vehicles and batteries and your solar panels on your house. So if you want to get the technical description of what he was doing, you can click on that link, the yellow link, and it'll take you to his YouTube page that explains exactly what he's doing. 2024, last year, we had a scholarship awarded to Mohammed Rahman, and he was looking at monitoring and improving water qualities by identifying and qualifying pollutants in water bodies to proactively safeguard aquatic ecosystems. And the pollutants of interest were harmful substances and plastic waste. We also had a research award to a lady known as Nomi, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but Tasfia. She was studying the impact of nonprofits on children's development within the urban environment. And then this year, we're going to have 2 awards, scholarship awards, and then 1 research award. So that's the end of the endowment report. Anybody has any questions, put them in chat and we'll try to address them a little bit later. Okay, so our mission is for education, service, and advocacy. Educational activities that ACC did last year, the monthly Post Oak newsletter. John Darlene does a bang up job on that newsletter. It's getting better all the time. But he has assistance of John Dykus, Grace Darlene, and Marion Hollar. So that's our major education activity, one of them. And we have a Facebook discussion group, which has been growing lately. It's gotten quite a bit of action. We have 142 members. So that's fairly interesting that we only have like around 50 paying members, but our Facebook group keeps growing. And then we have monthly speakers, our major education effort. And Marion Hyla does nice graphics, which you'll see when we talk about the speakers. So I'll go through the speakers that we had this year. February, we had Hester Schwartzer talking about native trees as wildlife habitat. In March, we had Clint Hale. He talked about a framework for prairie restoration in the built environment, sort of like pocket prairies. In April, we had Rita Bevan, a public citizen, and she's sort of the environmental lobbyist of the state legislature, and she talked about what to expect in the legislative session that was coming up. Then Ann Knudsen was giving us the benefits of native plants in our May speaker. Our June speaker was Ian Bryant, who was talking about high-speed transportation in Dallas-Fort Worth. They have it all planned, but we don't have the money to implement it, so I think they keep planning no matter if there's money or not. The August speaker was Charlie Amos, talking about planting for the birds. He's always a favorite speaker. And in September, we had Larry Bentley. We talked about using solar-powered water pumps in Guatemala. And I think that got people interested in using water pumps to, because in a lot of the natural areas, we don't have water consistently. We don't have water taps that we can tap into. The city a lot of times turn those off. And so we could get water out of creeks or whatever with a solar pump. I think Grace is doing that. I don't know if she'll mention that tonight or not. But that was an inspiring talk from somebody that's working in a remote area. And our October speaker was Rita Bevan again, who's gave us an update on what we should expect in the fall legislature session. And then in November, we had Laura Miller, who had a tour of South Africa looking at plants and talked about how we can get those adapted for Texas, the changes we're seeing in Texas weather. And she was looking for plants that would survive in Texas. So the next part of the mission has to do with service activities. We ACC mostly works through other organizations and do things such as erosion control and natural area beautification, bluebird nest box maintenance and monitoring, pollinator gardens, planning and maintenance. Josephine does a lot of that, but we sort of help or sort of an umbrella agency that has a lot of people doing things underneath. We have trash pickups in parks and natural areas. We have booths at different events. And then, as everybody knows, we're removing invasive species like privet. So if you want to participate, or if you're not participating in any of these type of activities and want to, just let us know, and we'll have presentations by the FAUNA group, the Friends of Arlington Public Natural Areas, and they should talk about their volunteer opportunities available in their natural areas. So our final missions is on advocacy. And again, our FAUNA group is the main group. The Friends of Arlington Unique Natural Areas is really our major environmental advocacy group. We meet with the Arlington Parks and Recreation Department quarterly, and that's been very helpful. We're still trying to get some of the issues straightened out in the parks. That right now the major one is mowing heights and getting mowing done in the natural areas. We also had some people doing advocacy for getting greenhouse. The greenhouse in Randol Mill Park, one of them was torn down because it was deteriorating. So the city's wanting us to use the senior center greenhouse, which is being built. I don't know if it's built now, but the building is starting to really be visible from the green oaks. And then if we get the greenhouses set up right, then we should have major plants for the Wildscape, for several park pollinator gardens, and for plant sales that make money for the Wildscape. And then another advocacy effort is the Facebook group. A lot of the messages on there are about advocacy for different events coming up. And then another advocacy effort has to do with the things that we're talking about with the Parks Department. And I listed a few of them here, the experimental use of goats to remove privet versus using herbicides. And we've had in Randall Mill, we've had goats the last, I think it's over a week ago, we had a group of about 15 people trying to find the goats, but we never could. They were there, but we couldn't find them in Randall Mill. But Crystal Canyon, they moved Randall Mill to Crystal Canyon. These are 2 test sites. And I actually went out to Crystal Canyon and we saw the goats. There's supposed to be about 300 of them. There was quite a few of them at Crystal Canyon. Another advocacy effort is collect trash in the creeks. And one of the efforts that we had, again, tested out, this is because of our work with the Parks Department, our meeting with the Parks Department and talking about all the trash that flows into the parks. This little item on the right here, you see it looks like a worm, but it's a buoy that catches trash when the water flows through. So that's called a water goat. So we have a test water goat in Randall Mill Park. And as I mentioned earlier, mowing heights and times and issues, that's one of the things that everybody's been working on. And then trail signage and trail mulching and maintenance is another big advocacy effort. And we're talking with the city. I know some places like Don Young in Tandy Hills, they're burning, they're using prescribed burns. I think they were the first group in Fort Worth to have one. So we're asking the Parks Department to include us in some of those prescribed burns so we can watch what goes on. I know one of the things they talked about is that that parks, natural areas shouldn't have a lot of brush around the edges, especially when there's houses around the park. So we need to be more sensitive to burns that are probably coming our way. And now the next thing is Grace Darling will give us about a 5-minute presentation on the watchdog. She's our watchdog person. So she, if you see anything and you want something to happen, email Grace Darling and she'll go after it. So Grace, are you ready to show your bark?
Thank you, Dick. 2 things coming up pretty soon. One will be next Tuesday at the City Council meeting. Livable Arlington is looking for a support to try to defeat the proposal by Total Energy. They're trying to build yet more fracking wells near a school, one of those preschools called Mother's Heart near 360. We are sending a letter on behalf of ACC. I'm assuming all of people who are ACC members will be against fracking wells near a preschool. This has been defeated twice before. So this is the 3rd time they're coming with 10 new wells, and the distance from the building of the preschool to the fracking wells themselves is a little over 300 feet. But if you consider the playground for the preschool is within 300 feet. 300 feet is already a waiver distance from the 600 feet that such a fracking well would necessitate normally. But the city council has made provisions for increased safety. Anyway, Livable Arlington needs our support. We're sending a letter trying to defeat this new fracking well proposal, but you can really support them and us by being at the city council meeting on next Tuesday at 6:30. They start right on time, so don't be late. And you'll have to sign a card that you either want to speak or whatever. Anyway, that's one way to make your opinion heard, is to show up at city council meeting. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was water, and the Marvin Nichols Reservoir will be one of the recommended strategies for Region C. And again, Region C includes counties basically from Dallas County to the west and to the north and south. 16 counties are in Region C. Region C is not so much Dallas County itself, but there are 4 major water providers that supply the water needs for Region C. And they're trying to get water from a new reservoir they recommend to be built in Region D, which is in East Texas. That reservoir would basically drown 66,000 plus acres of mixed forests and timberland, pastures, farms. It's a mixture. It's not all natural forest, but there's a great deal of trees involved. They would all be underwater if the reservoir is built. They're also recommending other strategies, conservation strategies and all that, that would obviate the need to have a reservoir built in East Texas. The East Texas residents, which is Region D, they're fighting this tooth and nail. They think it's a horrendous idea, and the proposal will go to the Texas Water Development Board for a decision in the near future. Near being in state terms, that'll be like 2026, because
1 minute, Grace.
all the permits and everything will take probably a good year. And they're hoping the new reservoirs called Marvin Nichols will be online by 2050. So again, if you want your voice heard, please let us know, and we'll put you in touch with how to contact the Texas Water Development Board so they'll make the right decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Grace. Now we'll have 5-minute reports from natural areas.
Thank you. Okay. Of course, this is Molly Hollar's Wildscape report, and just I can't go without saying, we lost her this year at the beginning of of 24, and I just wanted to remind everybody it's been a year since she's been gone, and I hope that she is up there looking at us and saying that we're doing, keep on doing her good work. Next slide, please. Okay, earlier in the year, we start, as we usually do, with things like, normally we do the privet pull in February, but that was when Molly's services were held. So we postponed that to later in the next month. And you can see Jim Domke over here is representing where we were pulling privet, not potting it up, but pulling it. And then the rest, most of the spring is just cleaning up, getting weeds taken care of, and just things ready for the spring show. Next slide, please. And then in the spring, we waited till the better weather so we could do the seed ball test for Molly's memorial. And we went through the whole Wildscape tossing seed balls, special seed balls that would hopefully start growing this year at the end. And we haven't seen a sign of them yet, but we hope to see them this spring. And we had a really good turnout for that. And Molly's daughter said that they really felt that seed ball toss was an even better memorial service than the one that was held at Meadowbrook Parks Recreation Center. And then as we work through, especially in the early spring, we can see what things need to be done. And here are some areas that we'll be working on later. Next. Okay, erosion is a constant battle, as you saw from that previous slide. And so we start working on things that can help with that. If you can see in the upper left-hand corner, Christine and Marion worked on a little walk crossover so that where the water runs through and people tried to walk through there and it's getting dangerous. So they built a little bit of a walkway so that it would be easier to get from the Wildscape area towards the fairway and the west side of the Wildscape. And that was pretty successful. And then you see a picture of Marion with the wheelbarrow there trying to test it out to make sure it worked well. And it's still holding up. That was earlier in the year that they did that. We also planted some grasses, some large, oops, nope, go back to Frank. Sorry. There's a picture on the upper right showing where we started planting grasses in the drainage at next to kind of behind the amphitheater. Later on in the summer, unfortunately, they kept getting mowed. And then in the bottom picture, we're all working on the west side, adjacent to the disc golf fairway, trying to get things there planted so we could help with erosion in that area. Thank you. And then, of course, while we're working, we want to enjoy what's there and enjoy the fruits of our labor. So I had to have a picture of when things are looking great in the Wildscape in the spring. Okay, next one. Okay, in education, we've got one of the things that we do when we have first Saturdays, we always have speakers, and we try to have good speakers that touch on things about the Wildscape or anything that has to do with wildscaping on your own. So we had some really good speakers this year, and you can see them right there, including John Darling, our own. And he's always good about telling us new stuff about composting. Believe it or not, there are new discoveries about that. And we had Erica told us about tarantulas in Texas and let us know about other tarantulas in the other parts of the world. Mike Smith is always great with his snakes, and Carol teaches us about what's going on with the bluebirds that year. And Mary Lee does a great job. She helps with the walks on the wild side. And the next picture, and the next slide. This is Walk on the Wild Side. We had a really big, huge group of 3 different schools that came out one day in the spring. That was a little much for us, so we're going to tone that down. But it still was successful, but a little tiring for us volunteers. But we did have a new thing that we tried where a school came out, the Montessori Academy came out every Monday to learn about one topic and had a kind of a series spread out over a few weeks during the summer. And that was very successful. And then in the fall, we had a small group that came out and did a small walk on the wild side, and that was wild side, and that was also very successful. The kids were very happy about that, and so were the teachers. Next one. Oh, that's odd. Some of the challenges we've been working on is getting our signs together. We had to have Molly's sign moved, which did get moved finally after a couple of years of asking. The sideways sign there, I don't know why it's sideways. It wasn't when I put it in. We had to have a sign replaced that was only there for a few years, that had turned completely almost black. And then we had problems with our beautiful benches that needed to be repaired, but somebody on their own took to trying to repair them. And so then we ended up having to have them completely replaced. So this is one of the benches that was replaced. And then a area on the west side where we had planted a bunch of little blue stem and some other grasses that got flooded with an irrigation problem in the spring. And then, so a lot of that died, but it's coming back. Next one, please. Okay. And there's an upside down picture there of Josephine at the plant sale. So we had a great plant sale this year. And it seems like every year we top ourselves. And even though we had a lot of problems, I shouldn't say we, Josephine's team had a lot of problems because of the issue with the greenhouse, they still did a great sale and did record-breaking sales for that. And then, as was alluded to earlier, the greenhouse is hopefully we'll be moving into that in this next couple of months, and we'll find out pretty soon how that's going, because we have meetings with the Parks Department actually tomorrow. Next.
Your time is pretty much up.
Okay, well, I got delayed because of a couple of issues. So I just wanted to say one more thing, that our Prairie, we got a new area because of the erosion behind the amphitheater. We're installing a new Prairie, and this is the beginning works, and we've already started this month planting in it. And that's what we'll be mostly talking about doing this year. Okay. That's it.
Okay, the next presentation will be Jan Miller.
Perfect. Okay, thanks very much. The main areas that we are involved with is Sheri Capehart is it was previously known as Southwest Nature Preserve. We try to just at least call it by the current name, but sometimes just for shortness, the preserve. But trails, habitat restoration, outreach, and monitoring, and then I'll talk about our plans for the current year. Next slide, please. Thanks. The main problems that we have are public use and abuse, trail fragmentation, and people using the trails when they're wet, and then erosion. We've got interesting terrain out there, which makes it great, but it's a challenge. This last year, we finally completed the Three Bridges project, and that was long overdue, but anyway, it was finally done, and we're so pleased, and it's a great asset. And then also trail maintenance is a never-ending job. We're trying to improve the drainage across the trails and repair the erosion that's caused by poorly laid out trails and just the rain patterns that we have. Next slide, please. And the top two slides you can see there are part of the Three Bridges project that was completed in May. We finally worked it out with joint project with the City of Arlington, Parks and Rec, who approved the plans that we had. And then the folks that you see on the top right are South Point Constructors. That's the company that's actually doing the I-20 project, the 287 Southeast Connector project out here. And they contacted us years ago about doing projects and helping out with the preserve. And so we took them up on it. And what you see is some very tired folks, but they worked nearly all day on a cold, wet May day, if you can imagine such a thing. But anyway, got those 3 projects, 3 bridges completed, and they're wonderful. But the rest of it is just the nature of things. People need to stay off trails when it's wet, and they don't. And trying to keep pet waste cleaned up to the big problems that we have. Next slide, please. Habitat restoration. This is Jim Freisinger, outstanding successfully in his field, where he's standing in the middle of one of his prairie starter plots. And some of the things that we deal with are the heat, drought, and cold, and the rainfall patterns that are challenging for any kind of restoration and invasive plants. We're working with a forestry management plan that's, we've worked with the Texas Forestry Service on that, and we're continuing to implement it, as well as a grasslands management plan that we've worked together with for years with NRCS on both the North Prairies project, which is about 2 or 3 years old now, and then the pollinator meadow management is at a management stage now, and it's about 5 years old. Next slide, please. And here we see on the left, the 2 Jims, Domke and Freisinger, seeding a repaired road trail, and that is now a success. It's reseeded and it's not eroding, and people are avoiding it, so that's a success. On the top right, you see a meeting that we had earlier in the year, last year, with the Arlington Fire Department Wildlands burn team on the right, and then on the left is Parks and Rec Management, Devin Stewart, and our park supervisor for the South Side is Matt King. But they met with us to discuss our preserve, how it relates to the neighborhood, what risk it presents, what opportunities are there as far as mitigating those risks, and how we may be able to work with them to provide training opportunities for their prescribed burns, as well as benefits to our grassland areas. The photo on the lower right is our NRCS partners. In the middle, that's Dr. Michaela Johnson on the left, and Benjamin Harrison on the right, as well as 2 of our volunteers, Rudy Arnold on the left and Jim Freisinger again on the right. But NRCS has worked with us on grassland projects for several years now. And Michaela, we found out that they also do advisement on hydrology. We had a hydrology project that came up this year because a dam on the middle pond failed. And so it's dumped a lot of erosion into the feature pond. Next slide, please.
1
Yeah.
minute.
Left.
I'm sorry, minute left. Okay.
Yep.
Next slide, please.
Well, I'm trying here.
And we did a lot of outreach, programs that you can see here, Great Backyard Bird Count. We did a winter tree idea walk. We have a yucca moth evening every year, bats. And we had a great evening. This photo that you see is Sam Kieschnick, and they did the City of Burlington's moth night there. Just volunteer events with UTA, and we are now having third Saturday volunteers that meet at either 9 or 10 o'clock, depending on the situation, but on third Saturdays. Next slide, please. And these are some of our outings. The diagonal top left and bottom right are Mike Smith has started doing Know Your Nature Neighbors, which is coming up this coming Saturday, as well as journaling and mindfulness in nature. And he offers those approximately monthly, and they've been a great success. The photo on the bottom right was our NRCS visit, and that showed the erosion that we're having to deal with. Monitoring, we're up to 1,438 species for the year, still at 167 for bird species. Bluebird nest boxes are continuing, but they have not been a success so far, but we're still trying. Feeding stations are usually put out in the winter, but we've stopped this year because of the avian flu and the Parks and Wildlife advisement. Next slide, please.
Okay, you're about out of time.
Okay, next slide, please. And I just wanted to let you know that we're continuing in our next programs that we're gonna have. As I said, Know Your Nature Neighbors is this Saturday morning on the 25th. And then we're having the Winter Tree ID Walk. It's already full, so we're sorry, but if you're really adamant on it, let us know. We'll let you know if there's any cancellations. Then the Great Backyard Bird Cat is on the 15th. And hope you'll come out and join us for that. Thanks very much. Bye.
Okay, Blackland Prairie Preserve. This preserve, like the following one, is in sharp contrast to the other fauna areas because it doesn't have active friends and it doesn't have any sort of volunteer group. What it has is potential or huge problems. Next, please. Just a very quick introduction. Blackland prairies are incredibly endangered. You see there Tarrant County showing in red outline how little we have and how little there is all over the state. It's not on this map, but we have less than 1% of what's shown here. Next. It's all about soils. On the left, the yellow is sandstone, which supports our post oak forest. On the far left, the green is limestone with Fort Worth Prairie, including, I hope I'm saying this right, Sand Hills. And on the far right, our little dab of Blackland Prairie. If we look at vegetation areas, it's almost the same sort of thing. And I put little red dots where I think our Blackland Prairie Preserve is. Next. And because I have a very strong feeling nobody much sees it, I've given you a quick reference. I-20, 360, a couple of big streets, and there's our preserve. Its nearest important neighbor, I suppose, is the airport. And of course, it's built up everywhere, all around it. Next. Here's a very quick run through the seasons, all standing about halfway through the 13 or so acres, looking more or less southwest. So here we are in the spring, after mowing. Next. Summer, looking about the same place, the same direction. This is early summer. It'll get a lot bigger and a lot harder to walk through. And if you like chiggers, this is your place. Next. Same view in early fall. And what's starting to show up here in all the little green blobs is shoots from hackberries and elms that just keep plaguing us. Next. And after mowing in the winter, same view. Next. Mandatory flower pictures because it's a prairie, it has to have flowers. Although, for one reason or another, we don't begin to have the kind of display you see at places like Tandy Hills. Next. When Grace and I are walking out there, we constantly think about what's going to happen to this place. It is essentially deserted, and we just don't know. A while back, we heard rumors that one of the city council people from the area would like to see athletic fields. We like to see variations on how it can remain a prairie, and our only bit of never plowed Blackland Prairie in the Metroplex, as far as I know. Next. Arlington does have a master plan. Next. I have no idea if anybody ever looks at it, but this was done by, among other people, David Hoffman, whom many of us know. He sees the eastern half, it's actually larger than half, as a lost cause, almost totally overgrown, in his mind, by eastern red cedar, and he'd like to see it all dug up and started over. The western side still is the unplowed portion that is dominated by wildflowers, native wildflowers, and some invasive species.
1
Next.
minute.
Ah. Next. The challenge, of course, is we don't have bison, we don't have fires. And next. You can see in 20 years the amazing growth, especially on the east side, of trees that in the minds of many of us, not all of us, but many of us, don't really need to be on the prairie. Because eventually we won't have a prairie if we keep seeing the encroachment. Next.
That's in 20 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Me, I want a huge fire, but I don't think that's going to happen. Next. There are other possibilities. One possibility that won't work is no mowing. We've got to keep mowing to keep hacking away at the hackberries. Goats are all the rage. That's one possibility. So is innovative approaches to mowing, where maybe you mow one part this year, the next part next year. Next. Here's mowing from last March, which I have been stewing about for months because they mowed not only late but wet, and they injured the gilgai, these unique, not unique, but these very rare features that may take years to recover. Next. A couple of days ago, it occurred to us that I couldn't give the talk without having seen it in a couple of months. So we went out, it's been mowed early and dry. We know it's dry because walking around, we can't see deep ruts anywhere. And next. Next.
They mowed
That's
right
a gilgai. Oh, that was a gilgai and didn't have any
through
brush.
wheels.
Dry as a bone. This is a gilgai from last March. That's it for me now. Thanks. Next is
Kevin's submitted the slides from OS Gray. This is one of the signs that he has at OS Gray. He's got some very nice signs, and I think his people got them made by a firm that puts the you see cars that have signs on them. This is the same material. So it seems to be working better than most of the signs that we have that sort of last about a year or 2 years at the most. So here's this upcoming events and volunteer opportunities. February 8th, 9 a.m. to noon, there's a community day. February 15th, the 6:30 to 8:30 star parties. Those are fairly well attended. They have not bonfires, but fires for roasting hot dogs, and they have marshmallows, and the kids really get out there. And sometimes I would say there's probably 150 people in that small park for the star parties. And they have people that bring their telescopes from the astronomy club in Fort Worth, come out and set up so you can see different planets and different things from each of the volunteer astronomers that are out there. March 8th is from 9 to noon. There's a community work day, and there's one every month. So if you want to volunteer at OS Gray, it's there's plenty of stuff to do. They have privet cutting, which they do. They have tree trimming, and the pollinator garden is Josephine's out there with her pollinator garden. I don't know if Jane's going to keep coming out, but Jane was don't shake your head, Jane. Anyway, she was one of the faithfuls helping with all the pollinator stuff in OS Gray Park. So here's the Facebook page for OS Gray. And that's the last slide, I think. And then if you want to go to their Facebook page, you gotta take your camera and get to that code there that you take a picture of it and it brings you to their website. Next will be Randall Mill Park. Carol?
So welcome to Randall Mill Park and thanks for inviting me here tonight. This is this was actually a picture of the fountains. Next. So we have lots going on over at the Randall Mill Park. We had over 1,659 volunteer hours reported to the city. We did an Earth Day with the UTA Big event. We did trail mulching, erosion, monitored. We have 14 boxes of bluebird nest boxes out there now. We are maintaining the pond triangle garden. The Parks and Wildlife is still putting out rainbow trout, which should be done next month. We're still working on restoring our prairie. Eagle Scout project was done to install fishing line receptacles, and the Parks Department installed pet waste stations. Driving through for security with the Arlington Police Department is still going on, and we meet quarterly with the FAUNA. Next slide. Okay, thank you. Earth Day. It was April the 13th. We were going to have 2, but it got rained out. So it was a lot of trail mulching and building and maintenance. Next slide. Here's some more pictures of another event that we had. And then down below is a couple of other people who come out and just want to help, whether there's an event or not. They just call me and say, you want to work on the trails? And I say, yes. Next slide. We also had erosion problems, as always, like everyone does. This year was the year of boulders. It seems the city had a lot of extra boulders that they got from different places and put it over in Randall Mill. That's the creek on the lower right. And then on the upper left is a rain event. So you can see what problems we have over there. Next slide. Okay, this is our bluebird nest boxes. Jamie was nice enough to make this map of the location map of 14 boxes. And this year we had a lot of invasives coming in. The bird in the middle there with the pink mouth is the cowbird, and those are bigger, fatter, louder than the bluebird. So the moms feed that cowbird and her babies starve or something else happens. Over on the right-hand side, we had problems with snakes this year, invading some of the nest boxes. Next. Okay, the Pond Triangle Garden. Got lots of volunteers. It's a monthly 4th Thursday each month. We meet out there. Mainly we do the Triangle Garden, but sometimes we'll go into the forest area and pull privet or something like that. But it's always the 4th Thursday every month. Next slide. Always picking up litter and working on the watershed. Volunteers. I think this year I'm going to have to start counting how many bags, but that's just the people that I know are picking up garbage. There's lots of neighbors that walk through there with their bags and their pickup sticks and pick up stuff, but we have a great group of people even at the north that pick up litter ongoing, several events a year. Next slide. This is the Boy Scout, an Eagle Scout project, installed the fishing line receptacles. The city came out and did a boardwalk, which was city members that told us what was going on with the parks. And then the water goat, that's Dick made reference to that earlier. And then they just installed the pet waste stations. Next slide. So here's our goals for Randall Mill Park, is always looking for volunteers. We continued the erosion control around the pond and creek, and we were working with the city to build and maintain walking trails, mulching and building the trails. We'll continue with our bluebird monitoring.
1 minute.
Thank you. We are hoping to get educational signs out there from the Audubon, and we work with the city to improve mowing schedule, which is going to start tomorrow over in the wild natural area. This year, we're going to try to install some bat roosting boxes in the park. We're going to continue with our litter-free park and watershed program and continue restoration measures in the natural area. I thought I just saw, next slide. So thank you. If anybody would like to volunteer or have any comments, I saw something come up in the chat. Let me see, what was that? It was from Grace, I think.
It was about, can people keep the fish they catch?
Oh, yes, they can. Yeah, and actually the wildlife department will, sometimes they'll even put catfish in there, but yes, now the state has come down real hard on all this, and you do have to have a license, a fishing license. But there's no watchdog out there going around asking people, but yes, you can keep the fish. That's one of the reasons why they do the trout, is because it's a real active fish. And so it gets people excited, and the little kids excited about catching something on their fishing line. Now we just need to train the people to put their, take their fishing line and put it in the receptacles that we have now. And there's another message somewhere, or is that all the questions?
I didn't see any others specifically for Randall Mill Park, but at
Okay.
the end, I was going to kind of go through. I didn't want to interrupt the speaker since we're really adhering to the 5 minutes. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, then that's all I have. Thank you all. And there's my information and Dick's contact information.
We have Julia Burgen, Grace.
Oh, Grace
mute.
has asked to be Grace.
Oh, I,
Need to-
John's gonna do it. I don't talk in public. I
Huh,
just like,
Oh, okay.
I'll be Grace and I'll be quick. If the Blackland Prairie, if the Blackland Prairie is largely unknown in terms of Arlington's natural areas, then Julia Burgen Park ranks even lower, I believe. It's a relatively recent park that came from removal of over 100 houses from the Johnson Creek floodplain, and it has a very mixed sort of feel to it. Next. This is the city's view of the thing, which is not entirely accurate. The main feature here is the fact that I labeled gas wells on it because we are right next to Arlington's first fracking well. Next. Here's a simpler version to give you some idea where it is. UTA is right there. Johnson Creek, of course, is the reason for it. You see Center Street, Park Row, Collins. Next. Here's a different way of looking at it. I think of it in two parts. The eastern part, which features a very large detention pond and banks that have been pulled back, which means all the trees that were there are gone except for new weedy trees that have come in. Silt comes in because it's wide and shallow. The floodwaters drop their sediment load, and a couple of years ago, they had massive equipment in there clearing everything out. The western part, for me, is more interesting. It has the biggest wooded area, and in spite of the fact that there are acres of mowed grass, the creek plus the woods look important to me. Next. Here it is, poor battered Johnson Creek with what looks like poor water quality, undercut, heavily eroded banks that invite trees to fall in, and a strange mix of vegetation left over from where people used to live, plus whatever can grow there. Next. Moving out from the creek, we have wooded margins in various conditions, and including people's backyard trees, a few cottonwoods, almost no post oaks, and whatever else can grow. Next. And the dominant feature, masses and masses of sort of 1950s style park. The main animal of interest in this area is bluebird. They do like this. Next. Here's the basic setup for a lot of the park, where things have been removed, and we've got a big concrete trail almost showing, plus cleared areas, and then the Johnson Creek bank. Next. Why is this important to, say, fauna or to Arlington's natural areas? The creek and the wooded brushy margins are habitat. That's all there is to it, including habitat for aquatic creatures that I know almost nothing about. And one thing that doesn't get mentioned too often, a migration corridor for birds. Dr. Bob Neal, formerly at UTA, stressed the importance, the difficulties birds migrating through Arlington have finding green places to move through. And by the way, this background shows what a big chunk of the creek does look like closer down south toward the Parks Mall. Next. Here it is. We're sort of central between what is called the origin and to almost where the creek leaves Arlington. I'll claim the next slide will show what might be the importance of it as a corridor. Next, please. This may look a little too green. I crossed out Vandergrift because as a prairie park, it just doesn't have wooded margins. Marrowbone Spring is good and similar in many ways to Julia Burgen. Doug Russell, which is a little bit away from the creek, is terrific, especially for migrating warblers. And then as you go north, it's bits and pieces, but it's what we have and it's what the birds have to get through the middle of town. Next. Instead of projects, this is my heading, and you see that it's not exactly accomplishments. First for me is, in spite of everything, leave the banks alone. If you pull back banks in the name of flood control, you lose every bit of vegetation. Of course, removing invasive exotics, we've got masses of privet, and then make the margins better. Put in more trees and shrubs, all natives. And somehow, some way, we need a friends group. Next.
1 minute.
This is a different view of the same thing. More trees and shrubs near the banks, maybe bunches of forbs scattered around closer to the big path. Next. Dangers. We have two kinds of things that are happening even now or have already happened in the area I consider most valuable. Next. On the south side of the gas wells, clearing, massive clearing that has made no sense to me. I've never gotten an explanation. It's not even the city doing it. It's UTA, and it's, as far as I can tell, on city land. It's too late. It's happened. Couldn't be stopped, and I just hate the idea that it will somehow continue to happen. Next.
We cleared it for no reason.
And on the north side, even the Parks Department clears more than I think they should for their project. A little tiny pedestrian bridge on a tributary, lots of clearing. Of course, I got to admit that all that green in the back is almost all privet. Next. What we do have in places is wonderful wooded margin, including my favorite cottonwood and a catalpa tree even. Next. Even bits of picturesque tributary, and last, next, Johnson Creek itself, battered, bruised, with all its cuts and bruises, it still is at times a very significant aquatic channel through the city. The bad side of this picture is just almost every green leaf, you guessed it, privet. Next. What we also have is the hope that this will someday, somehow, be an even better place for natural Arlington, and in hopes of fulfilling Julia's dreams. That's it. Thank you.
We're at the point where we'd like to have a discussion on what you think ACC should be doing in 2025. So if you want to talk, just unmute your microphone by clicking it, the icon, or holding down your space bar while you're talking. Or you can post in chat and Marion will catch those and bring those into the conversation. And so post what you think ACC should be doing, or say what you think ACC should be doing in 2025. And list anything you think that would improve our effectiveness. And then finally, which is most important, if you're willing to help with anything, with any of your suggestions, let us know. So who wants to, I didn't have a person starting out, but who wants to start out? You got to unmute your microphone.
Okay, while people are thinking about what they want to comment, there was a question in the chat for John. Maybe it was more in passing, but Jamie was wondering if bison could be rented like the goats for the Blackland Prairie. Of course, that may be more of a tongue-in-cheek question, but
I
has
would love
anybody
it.
looked at?
I would just love it. But I understand that fencing is a very serious problem. Insurmountable.
They are able to jump pretty high.
Yeah. So
Just walk through fencing. I
Yeah,
would
they just walk right through.
yeah.
like my hopes, giant fire. I think the bison and the fire are both beyond our dreams.
Yeah.
And also for the speakers, if you haven't looked yet in the chat, there are a lot of great kudos for you all and the job that you did in your presentations and what your particular projects are doing. So, and Don Young was one of them, and thanking people for what they're doing. And he says, your challenges are similar to ours at Tandy Hills. Keep up the good work. If you can, please attend our field
how to do it.
of the mock.
Where do I put in the new thing?
Okay, somebody's talking. I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, please attend their screening of the mothing film Nocturnes at the Modern Art Museum this Saturday. There's no admission. It is with an RSVP, and Sam is going to be leading the annual Trout Lily Walk in early March. Finally, come in March to see their iconic Prairie respond to the recent prescribed fires. It is certainly worth, this is my comment, of you to go out there. It's quite spectacular. So details on their website. I think that's all the questions or whatever. So
Anybody has any suggestions on what we can be doing or what we should branch out into? I think the one thing that I found is that meeting with the Parks Department has been very productive. And also, we finally got where we can meet with the mowers before they mow. So they can tell us where they're gonna mow or where they're gonna weed whack. And we can then tell them what we planted there, because we've had a big problem with everything we do being weed whacked or mowed or something like that. So basically, communications are really the a big issue, at least for Randall Mill.
One question Annabelle had was this year, how can we get young people involved? That's always been.
Put a skateboard in your park.
Is that working there at Randall Mill Park?
Those skate people that use that skate park and risk their life by putting their skateboard up on concrete barriers. That's a very, very popular place.
Okay, another question Sandy has, and maybe Grace can address this, is what is our role in the drilling and fracking which affects Arlington areas? I know Grace is involved, especially with working with Livable Arlington.
Well, they certainly have taken the lead, and that's what they do exclusively. So I would definitely get a hold of Rangina and anybody in her group. They have a very good website called livablearlington.org. Livable is, they spell it L-I-V-E Arlington, or live able Arlington, all one word. .org, and there are all kinds of suggestions there how you can participate. You can write letters, you can attend the meetings, you can just really become informed about what's happening with fracking and the methane gas effluent, it's not effluent, the methane gas that some of these operations give off is
What's
very
going on here?
toxic. So it's 80 times more toxic than the carbon dioxide and sulfur compounds that are normally considered bad for associated with these wells. In general, what I know, I learned from them, and they can use all the help they can get. So please give them a call or get a hold of them. Again, you can enter through their website, livablearlington.org.
One of the other things that I think would be very useful is if you know somebody, a city council member or people that have some influence in the city, the Parks Department budget keeps getting cut. And they just had a major reorganization. So people that you worked with last week or the last month are probably not the ones you're going to be working with this month, which really destroys a lot of our communication channels that we've opened up. But I don't think we're seen as a value to the city, especially the natural areas.
James Orlovsky's the new guy that runs parks is real aggressive at doing good things. At least he's gotten much more involved with the animal shelter, for example. And I mean, where the guy that had it before under code didn't really give a damn. Orlovsky came on in October. He has come to all the board meetings. He's signed up to be a volunteer, and he wants his head in the game for things that involve the Parks Department, as well as just good, healthy environment and nature and life and times in Arlington. He's probably a really good resource for us. I don't know if anybody had a chance to meet with him or talk to him.
Yeah, we talk to him quarterly, the FAUNA group.
James Orlovsky just came on board. I mean, he just got the assignment in October.
No, he's been there longer than that.
been there for a couple of
Well,
years.
he's the new director of it. He may have been there a long time, but he's,
No, he's been director. He was hired in as director.
What
Okay.
happened was they did a reorganization in the Parks and Rec Department. And now the animal services are under his umbrella as the Parks and Rec Department. That's why he's so involved with the animal shelter, is because that's part of his job now.
right, but the people before didn't ever stick their nose. They didn't even know what was going on. And my point is just that he has signed up and showed up for things that involve the Parks
Animals.
Department and the community in general.
Yes, what a wonderful, he is a wonderful man.
So I think he's somebody we can explore ideas with.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, if he's
good
there
idea.
volunteering with you, you have his ear then. I would say go
Absolutely.
over there when you know he's gonna be there volunteering, and just kind of ask him what's going on.
Well, when he first came on board, there had been a real deficiency in leadership from the code enforcement people, and they moved animal services to parks. He asked all the animal services board members to come in and share with him their concerns one-on-one, because he wanted to know what people's experiences were, which
Mhm.
impresses me when somebody goes to that much trouble, his time and everybody's time, and very receptive to looking at how we can make things better.
Yes.
Going back to the getting youth involved, Sandy has I think a great suggestion about contacting the biology and environmental clubs at high school campuses for sponsors to connect with ACC for volunteer hours, which the students need. So that sounds like a very doable thing. Thank you, Sandy. Other comments is, getting our website going, which is in work. Thank you, Carol. I know it's been really a long time coming, but action is being taken on that. So stay tuned. Let me see. And Jane wants to keep focus on invasives and climate change.
And we're
And
about ready to do the voting for the slate of board members. And you got-
okay, so
you got
okay.
some area?
I'm sorry, but you ignored mine.
Well,
My
I guess because
comment-
I was getting to it, Grace.
I know, and Dick just wants to keep things moving, which I appreciate, but I am very concerned about how they keep taking the last remaining open green spaces in Arlington for new construction. And mostly it has to do with apartment buildings, because that's all they seem to be working or building these days. So Arlington is 99% built up, and that one remaining percent, if it's not a park, it won't be protected. And we need to make sure that we can save some of it for, if nothing else, a wildlife corridor, like John Darling was talking about. It's very important to have enough islands, like a choke collar or something, that the birds can migrate through. We just don't have that in Arlington. Nobody seems to care. We have so many empty office spaces and well, retail space too. And instead of rebuilding there, they just go and put it up somewhere else. Anyway, if you're for smarter land use, please reach out to me, because I'm thinking of ways that we can just go against this. I don't know if I have the answer yet, but we'll come up with something. It's very important that we keep what little we have left.
Very important. we're voting for 2-year terms. We have the people that are up for renewal are John Darling, John Dykus, myself, and Jamie Bruner. So we have that as a slate that the board said they will nominate or recommend that those everybody be voted as a slate. If you have somebody that you think wants to be on the board, please volunteer their name if you've talked to them about it. We're accepting any new board members. So we can vote several different ways. I see about probably 1 to 8 people that are, or 7 people who have their video cameras on. But if you could vote by saying yes to the slate in chat, and then Marion will count those, and then raise your hand if you want to vote for the slate, and I'll count those.
I'm trying to put it on chat, but I'm not making it show up, so I'm saying yes.
Okay, I have Jane, John, and Ellen raising their hand. If you raise your hand, then I didn't say your name, but raise your hand again. I said Ellen.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody voted. If you haven't voted and you want to vote, you can email me or any other board member and either nominate somebody to be on the board or vote for any of the ones that you want to vote for.
I'm voting for the slate that you have there. Right.
Okay,
Me too.
It's Josephine says a yes.
okay. So anybody have anything else to say? We're at 8:37. So we're trying to keep this, since it's an annual, keep it at a hour and a half. So people can go out and if they haven't eaten, they'll get something to eat. If not, if nobody has anything else to say, I thank everybody for attending. We like to be responsive, so keep us appraised of what your needs are. And communication is really, really important, especially talk up the parks, the natural areas and stuff, because ball fields are biggies and they suck more of the resources away from the natural areas. So we need all the PR we can get. Have a good night. Thanks for coming.
Okay, I want to say thank you to everyone.
Oh, thanks, Josephine.
I second that.
I
I'm always
third it.
so delighted. You guys are always so impressive. Thanks.